Front-wheel drive cars can be difficult to tune. In this video, I'm going to hopefully provide a bit of an insight of the fundamentals needed that allows you to tune your own front-wheel drive cars. So, let's not mess about, let's get straight into this with Phase 1. Understanding front-wheel drive dynamics. So first, let me just cover the basics of how front-wheel drive cars behave. So this layout leads to mainly one certain distinct characteristic. Now that is understeer. Understeer, understeer, and more understeer. They tend to push wide during cornering, especially and more pronounced underpower, as you can see here with this Vauxhall VXR. The car wants to turn around the corner, but due to the understeer, it just carries on straight and headed straight into the barrier. Next, another characteristic usually of standard front-wheel drive cars, so ones without roll cages and ballasts, is the excess weight over the front, causing rear instability. Front-wheel drives usually have around 55 to 56% weight distribution, meaning there is more weight over the front wheels. This causes problems. This excessive weight over the front can actually make the rear of the car feel light and unstable, mainly at higher speeds during cornering, more so than slower speeds. As you can see here on turn 1 on Suzuka, it is extremely exaggerated, but this is a characteristic of a front-wheel drive car. Moving to Phase 2. So now we have an understanding of front-wheel drive cars' dynamics. We're going to move over to Phase 2. Another very important aspect of tuning front-wheel drive cars is suspension tuning. For front-wheel drive cars, suspension tuning is extremely important. I'm not going to go into too much detail about these aspects, but I will give you a bit of an understanding of how doing something makes the car behave a certain way. So let's start with front suspension stiffness. Now, with more weight over the front, as it always is in car tuning, there usually has to be a compromise. Now, stiffer front suspension, so increasing the spring rate and the roll bars, so I've combined both into this. The car will have less body roll and a more direct steering response, meaning it's going to point exactly where you want it to. Brilliant for racing. However, this can increase understeer because the front tyres will lose grip faster. So, softer springs. On the other hand, softening the front suspension can help the tyres maintain grip, especially over uneven surfaces and during cornering. But this can also reduce understeer, but can make the car feel less responsive and more prone to body roll. Moving over to the rear suspension. So stiffening the rear suspension increases the stiffness of the rear springs, which can help understeer. The stiffer rear suspension provides less understeer by making the rear more prone to rotating or oversteering, as it's called, maintaining weight over the front of the axle. So this is useful for improving cornering, but too much stiffness can again make the car feel unstable. So on the opposite, the softer rear suspension generally increases rear end stability, reducing the likelihood of oversteer. However, this can actually increase understeer, making the car less willing to turn. So before we go into the next phase, just have another double check that you understand the suspension tuning. Stiffer means more agile, more responsive, more controllable. Softer means it's going to have more grip, better over bumps and curbs, but can reduce the responsiveness and make it more unstable due to the body roll. So with that, I hope that's all sinking in. Let's now move on to Phase 3, tyre pressure and alignment. So let's touch on tyre pressure and alignment. This actually does play a bit of a crucial role in the fine tuning, aspect of the front wheel drive cars. So tyre pressures. The higher front tyre pressure. Increasing the front tyre pressure will lead to a sharper turning. So the response will be increased, but this also increases the risk of understeer as the contact patch decreases. So if we lower the front tyre pressure, what happens? Lowering the tyre pressure increases the size of the contact patch, providing more grip and reducing understeer, but may make the steering feel sluggish and less responsive. With these, do not go to extremes. Check the telemetry, and you want the inside, the middle and the outside to be there or thereabouts on corner exit. So just as you're about to exit the corner, you're just about to hit the outside apex, check the tyre pressures, make sure they're as close as you can get them. Yeah? Perfect? Right, let's move on to camber and toe. So camber and toe. Front camber, adding negative camber to the front wheels can improve cornering grip, as the outside tyre will be more straight or perpendicular, if you will, to the road during the cornering. However, as with most things, too much of something can be bad. Now, this is no different. Too much negative camber can reduce the straight line grip, so the acceleration and the braking, and actually increase tyre wear. Rear camber, so for the rear, a little negative camber can actually stabilise the car, but too much may make the rear end too loose. Now, for me, I have a rule of thumb where what I do with the cambers and the toes, I swap them as I would with a rear wheel drive car. Now, front wheel drive cars, the front tyres are doing everything, steering, braking and turning, as the rear tyres do not get any power transfer through them, so they're really there just to stabilize the car, essentially. So what we need to do is we need to use that rear camber to aid in that corner rotation. Not enough, it's too understeery; too much, it will over rotate. We need to find that happy medium. A good rule of thumb, negative 1.2 on the front camber, negative 1.6 on the rear, and tune from there. Toe settings, realistically avoid them if you can, because this really alters the car and tyre wear. But if you feel like you need to do them, adjust these last before you've adjusted every single thing you can. These are I have no idea what else it could be, then you try these. Adjusting toe out can actually help with the turning response. Toe in is a negative number, which is moving the slider to the left, which adds stability but will still increase tyre wear. Last but not least, phase 4. Right, now into bump stiffness. So this is the compression element. A stiffer front bump, what's that going to do to the car? It's going to actually add more resistance to the suspension when compressing under load. So, what's good about this? It can reduce body roll during corner entry, and can also make the car feel more responsive. However, too much front bump stiffness can lead to understeer, especially over bumpy surfaces. So if we knock the setting soft, then what happens? Decreasing the front bump stiffness allows the suspension to compress more easily. This can help the front tyres maintain grip over these rough patches or curbs, reducing that understeer. However, it may cause excessive body roll, making the car feel sluggish and slow during turning. Rear bump stiffness. So if we stiffen the rear bump, what happens? This can help transfer more weight to the front during cornering, which can reduce understeer and make the car more agile. However, if the rear bump is too stiff, it can cause the rear tyres to lose contact with the road, leading to snap oversteer. A softer rear bump can help maintain grip and prevent oversteer, but too much softness might make the rear feel sluggish. So, in a nutshell with bump, it does not affect how much travel there is. That's what the suspension and the ride height does. Bump stiffness just controls how it absorbs those bumps. Right lads, so rebound damping. Imagine you're racing around a track and you hit a bump or a curb. Your suspension is going to compress. The spring then needs to extend back to where it was. That is the rebound. So this element is extremely important for maintaining the control and stability. So a well-tuned damper ensures that your tyres will stay in contact with the track. A damper that is too soft will make your car bounce, will reduce traction because as you go to accelerate out of a corner, for example, the rear will squat, push the tyres in, and then it will lift back up again. And that lift, which is an oscillation, causes the rear tyres to lose the amount of grip they once had. If it's too stiff, on the other hand, the car will feel harsh and it will lose grip over uneven surfaces, the curbs, etc. Listen, to get this thing right, you could spend hours tuning your rebound dampers. You could, and it will change and vary for each track. So on short, pointy tracks, you will need softer rebounds, which will aid in them slower corners. However, so stiffer rebounds then is needed for tracks which has a lot more faster corners. Silverstone, for example, is a very good one. Grand Oak. You will need stiffer dampers to maintain that stability going into those high speed corners. So with front wheel drive cars, with the bump and the rebound, if you feel the car needs a certain bit of stability, increase it where you think it needs that stability. You'll know whether it's the back end losing the grip or the front end losing the grip. So this is going to be the end of that short tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and I do hope you actually learned a thing or two. And any questions, fire them out down below. I'll try and answer as best as I can. I'm not a professional. Yeah, any questions, fire them down below, boys. And as always, take care of yourselves and stay tuned for more.